Welcome to Business Over Beer, where entrepreneurs, small business owners, and people passionate about what they do bring us their stories and their favorite beer. Hosted by Ben Surratt, Jonathan Kaler, and Jason Canope, it's time to get down to business and drink some beer.
So that's a lot of the behind the scenes work, is just continuously trying to say, how can we halt this? And we know we can't halt some things forever. Like the newspapers from the turn of the century were made with like just amazingly disastrous chemicals that would just, like, you see them starting to become brittle and eat themselves alive. And so it's like, okay, well then how do we preserve these things so that this information and the way it was presented, because it's not like just the newspaper article is important, it's also how was the paper laid out, how was it presented, where was it in the paper, things like that. So preserving those things is a huge part of that behind the scenes work, and that's a lot of our effort, and that's actually one of the least funded pieces. Most times in museums you end up getting maybe a person who's in the programs or events, or the fundraising is like the more hours kind of focus. Well, when I came in, I made a very conscious decision to say my collections manager is going to be 40 hours a week, and I will do extra work to make up for that by doing some extra shares that normally I would have like another person doing for that outreach piece, because people only want to sometimes invest in what they can see, like you said.
Right.
But I made the choice, and we have just beyond belief been able to expand our knowledge and also our care for the collection as a result of just dedicating him to do that. And so that's just been, a lucky piece that we really have, because we want to put our money where our mouth is and do our job, which is keeping these items protected and understanding them. And, it's tough for us because we have to share that space with a gallery. And it's like, I could take those galleries out and I could preserve everything perfectly, but instead I have galleries, and then I have to kind of place things in maybe a little more tighter of a space. And so we're always working to try to say, well, how can we get a new collections facility that isn't display, but that is actually like a warehouse where everything is controlled perfectly, and we can do that. But that's one of the hardest cells for us to manage.
Interesting.
What's the hardest to try to, keep paper, metal? Like, what's the...
I would say the newspapers and
print.
Yeah, print newspapers. And I'm not a collections expert. Like I obviously have my staff member that does that, but from my assessment, like paper material, paper archives, and photographs.
I was going to say, pictures got to be tough.
They're real tough, and the big thing too is that those things tend to get kind of tucked away by families into attics, basements, or garages, or
where
closets.
There's humidity.
And then they get to sit and really get bad before we get them sometimes, because people are like, oh, I want to keep my stuff and this and that. And then by the time we get it, it's like, wow, we got to do some pretty significant efforts to try to make sure to halt what was already happening pretty significantly, which, we have no problem people keeping their stuff. We want to be open to that, but like, we'd love to have the opportunity to halt that process. And we even offer for people, when we find out they have a lot of photos, we're like, hey, let us tell you what to put them in and where to put them. Like, we're cool if you keep them, like, that's fine. But they're hugely valuable. And like, someday if you come to a point where you don't feel like your family is going to care for these, or they're just going to get pitched or put in an estate sale, like, please call us, we will take them. But until then, we want to at least give you the tools of understanding to know how to care for those. So we do outreach like that a lot with people, and we offer it all the time. Like, we're like, hey, we'll tell you what kind of stuff, we'll send you a link, get it in a right enclosure, get it out of your basement, don't put it in the water heater closet. Like, that doesn't work good for photos and stuff.
Wow, I just thought of something, guys.
Kind of the Indiana Jones of Clark County.
I was just going to say, we could do the Biz Over Beer Antique Roadshow.
Yes.
And all proceeds go to help raise money for the museum.
That brain never stops working, does it? It's just always going, isn't it, pal?
And if I can make one more point to kind of add a little more on what you were asking about the collection, is the big thing, because of the space and because of us trying to care for these things, is what you have to realize when you go to a museum and you see an exhibit, is that exhibit material is a fraction of the fraction of what that museum holds. I mean, we hold thousands of objects. Like, this is just a light dusting of the objects that we have. But then also, because museums aren't necessarily always the most well-funded institutions and have the most capacity to take on objects, so what's in the museum is then a fraction of what was available to save. Like, we have 17,000 images in our collection that span from the 1860s all the way through today. And 17,000 sounds like a massive amount of material, but think of how many people lived in Clark County, how many photographs were taken over the years. We've lost tons of history.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been donated, it hasn't been preserved, it hasn't been saved, it hasn't been given to us, and also we potentially wouldn't have sometimes the space to care for it. Like, we will try to the end of the earth to save something, but like sometimes it's just like we don't have the space for it, and we have to make decisions that are tough.
Are you making decisions on things in like the present moment? Like, do you have a sense of, hey, this is a historical moment today in Clark County, so you start to keep current things or contemporary things inside of your collection, knowing that down the road, I mean, we kind of joked about it earlier with the beer and, you know, and the pictures of this podcast, but I'm wondering, do you have things in your collection? Do you kind of have that sense of future history when you see things happening in the county right now?
Absolutely, and we try best not to like dictate or manufacture like what people would give or save, but we also understand when there are moments and there are opportunities that are historic, and at the same time to not be in the place where we've lost so much community information and memory. We do. We want to be proactive, and we actually, as soon as kind of the shutdown happened, like I said, we've been shut down as a building. I always say this very specifically when I talk to people on the phone. We've been shut down as a building for 5 months. We have been at full steam work as an institution for 5 months. Like, we have not missed a beat. We have not stopped, because as soon as this happened, we went and launched what was called Capture the Moment. And this is a digital collection program that we have that people can go on our website and they can actually donate digital images, writing, videos, voice audio recordings, and then also we've been taking in a couple objects like some masks and other things that have been produced locally that will never be, that are really unique to this moment.
Yeah.
And we've opened up that collection to the community, and we've received photographs and writing and other stuff from the community to basically get that initial kind of moment of people seeing the shutdown happen and of, you know, COVID and all of that that's going on. And so we kind of, you know, we push to do that, and other museums are talking about the exact same thing of like, yeah, we should probably just be collecting things in this moment because you know it's going to be historic. So yeah, no, and we have that sense whenever we're operating or working with people, because, you know, someone who is maybe lived a really long life in the community and given so much and doesn't think they're a part of history is not going to think about saving the things of the moment in their life and letting us know, like, this thing means a lot to me, and this is like emblematic of like moments of my life or my life. So we are very cognizant of trying to be in the present without creating biases and trying to like dictate what people would give. We let people make their own choices, but we open the door for them to do that.
Gotcha.
Question. So having been shut down for so long and not really knowing when things are going to reopen, what are some of the things that you guys are working on to try to bring in some additional funds for the museum in the near term?
Yeah, no, one of the things is just starting to test out paid models for content. So we do History on Tap at the Kiggins Theater, and that was a paid program down at the Kiggins. You know, people would pay, you know, $18 a ticket to go see that. And with this, you know, coming on, we realized like we're not gonna be able to do that. So we have provided a lot of our content for free, but that one program has been paid, and we charge $10 for a stream link, and we actually been giving all the funds to the Kiggins. Because we would have been there anyways, and we would have been supporting him at that point. And so we've been testing with that. So paid content is something that we're starting to test out and feel pretty good that we might be able to transition next year to make all our content hopefully maybe paid to some degree. And at the same time, we also want to be cognizant of that people are at home, they're hurting, and they could use a little uplift. And then The other big piece is just driving more membership, and with our digital presence and how much we're putting out there for people, we've been able to add links and say like, hey, become a member and support us. Even though the building's not open, we're still providing the service to the community. So we've seen a nice bump in memberships actually. Like we haven't lost ground. We've retained our current members, and we've actually seen an increase. We were increasing much more before, but we've seen still a nice increase in our membership roles. And then just digital fundraising. So we're going to do the Give More 24 event, which is a day of nonprofit giving, and then our end of year campaign, and just more digital opportunities for people to just donate and support the projects that we're working on. And then this one is actually right in line with what we were doing before, is this model of having the kind of individual based sponsorship for an exhibit. So we did the beer bottles for the 99 bottles of beer on the wall sponsorship.
Yeah.
For our women's history exhibit, we did 100 yellow rose pins, and people donated $50 a piece to get one of the pins and their name on this big board that we're going to have. And then the sports exhibit that we're going to do 100 baseballs.
That's cool.
And we're going to let people come in and actually sign their own baseball, and then we'll put a little tag under there that says their name, and we'll have 100 baseballs on the wall.
Cool.
For that. So it's just, there's money out there to support things because people see the value in investing what we do. It's just a matter of giving them mechanisms to do it. And we've been really lucky. We've done okay. Obviously at some point we'll start stealing from Peter to pay Paul, but like we're not in financial crisis, but we still need people to continue to hold their support and investment in what we're doing.
That's awesome. Is it ever weird, like when something negative happens and yet it's going to be part of, like, the pandemic?
Yeah.
Is it weird because you must have some sort of, in your brain, you must be like, well, this is a bad thing, but it's history, so I need to start collecting stuff? Or is it more of a compassion and a realization that it might be bad, but it's still part of history?
Yeah, the funny thing with history and like with historians, and I always joke about this, is that what we get is not like names and dates training. Like, I was really good at memorizing names and dates in high school, which made me think I was going to be great at history. And then when I actually took my real first history class at WSU Vancouver, I was sitting in class and they were starting to talk about like kind of the ideas of history and like looking at this one moment from different perspectives and having to think about why this document was written this way and why did someone not put this piece of information in it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like critical thinking training. And I was like, I love this, because like I'm big into just like critical thinking and trying to math stuff out. I think life's kind of like a puzzle, and there's no win situation. There's always just you didn't make the right decision on how to math out that, and history is exactly that. And so when I see something happen, I don't think of it in binary terms. Like, obviously I'm compassionate and I feel bad for people and people hurt, and that's a human piece of me. But then my historian side thinks about like, this is one of those pivot moments where we like have an opportunity to either make decisions based on the information that we've looked at before, or all of this kind of data we've accumulated as a human, people or nation or whatever, and see how we could maybe make a positive out of a struggle. And that positive will come with obvious negative repercussions and some neutral repercussions and some positive results. And that's kind of how I try to think of things, is in these non-binary terms. I try to think of it critically, and I try to never just say like, this is good and this is bad. Obviously, like, this moment is very bad. It's hard. But in the long game, it's going to be interesting to unpack as a people how we responded, how we found resolve, how we didn't find resolve.
I never thought of it. You're right, man. Yeah. Absolutely.
So as a historian, have you done any of the work to compare previous pandemics? Of course, I think of the one of, I think was it the Spanish flu in 1919, 100 years ago. Have you done any of that sort of comparison just to kind of see how people did sort of survive and cope through that pandemic, and do any sort of initial comparisons as to what you're seeing today?
When things, shut down and this started to kind of roll out, obviously everyone thought of the Spanish flu. And I did do some looking at it locally, and I kind of read a couple things on the statewide piece. And, it's just like with anything else in history, people kind of say history repeats itself, but that's not necessarily, I think, accurate. It's more of like history is waves of moments and behaviors, and what happens is that repeating self that we feel like happens is that we're all human, and humans have behaviors that tend to express themselves in moments that are similar, but the moment I feel is always very significantly different, because we always, like, one of the things in my degree is they said that history or the past is a foreign country. If you went to go back to the past right now and jumped into the time of the Spanish flu, you wouldn't even know how to operate probably as a person, because it's a completely different culture, completely different set of environments and things like that. And so I always hesitate right away to like look at those direct comparisons, but then you also see human things, like there were shutting down theaters, and they were talking about masks, and there were debates over the best policies to address public health. And that's all similar. Those all the same things were happening. And how that'll shake out and kind of end up in long run is something that it'll be figured out when I'm gone. Which is a super nerdy historian way of doing that, but it's honestly, I think it's true. That's how we feel, because I think we're kind of people who like to just like stew on stuff as historians. Like, I like to get the information, I start to think about it, and then I like to change my view on it. And so that initial blush gave me the information to start seeing patterns and seeing if things were similar in some degree. And now I'm just kind of in this period of like, let's see how this turns out in relation to that. And we're, as people in history will always do, it'll surprise you, and it'll just take a left turn out of nowhere, and you're like, I didn't see that coming.
Well, because the interesting thing is we have the uncertainty of how long this lasts.
Yeah.
Right, we're in the middle of it, and we always think, oh well, it's happening, we know it's happening, and we're sort of envisioning the end. But I mean, here we are, we feel like we've been in this forever, right? I feel like, oh my gosh, 5 months, your building has been shut down. Your building could easily be shut down for another year.
Yeah.
Right, without even thinking about it. We could have another year or two ahead of us of this. We can't be sure, and so our perspectives all through sort of the cycle of it, or through the course of it, are going to change. Mm-hmm. But it won't be until we have that full perspective of the event and the full duration of the event. And I think that's what makes that looking back and the historical perspective so interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's getting enough time and distance to be able to really meaningful reflect on it. But that doesn't mean, and like you've kind of alluded to, it doesn't mean you still shouldn't look at the past events and say, well, what worked for them? Mm-hmm. And would that work for us? Like, I think that's where we miss out, is we think that the wholesale history has to be like the book and roadmap, like, oh, this has to fit perfectly as it fit in this situation, as opposed to like, oh, well, maybe history is more of like a toolkit, and I could just pull out bits and pieces and specific items that will help inform me on how to manage this moment. And I may or may not succeed in it, which also I think is a hard thing for us as people to grapple with.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's a t-shirt. History is a tool. What did you say? History is a toolkit.
Yeah.
That's a t-shirt.
There you go.
I love it.
I gotta
Ben.
say, yeah, Ben looks a little thirsty.
Ben, you got an empty glass over there, my man.
I do.
Let's
Bradley.
get that thing filled up.
No. Bradley. I will pass this down to you.
Ben's, would that be fuchsia? What would that
Am I
be?
the fuchsia?
Fuchsia container?
No, we agreed it was plum.
Plum, that's right. Correct. I mean, how appropriate, considering we are the, Vancouver was once the prune capital of the
Now, don't
world.
open that bag, okay?
Don't open the bag.
You can open that up, but don't open the bag. So every episode of the Business Over Beer podcast.
Oh, no.
No, yeah, she warned me about it. She said, keep it away from Kaler.
AKA Stitches 1.0.
My lovely wife, who you met tonight, she picks out a mystery beer. And it's been explained. Kaler, can you please explain the way the beers that Angie picks out for her mystery beer?
Ben, we typically would describe them as high octane, but recently, Miss Angie has gone very soft. But we've also been talking about the fact that our uppance is coming.
Yes, and
And-
I believe, I think,
And I think that uppance might come
yes.
this evening.
I mean, the cork alone has told me that
Yeah, exactly.
this is not going to be good for us.
Yeah. My history with corked beers is a little sketchy at best.
Yeah. We should have kept that bottle. We could have given it to the museum. That was a good part of history, let me tell you.
The first one or the one that I shattered and ended up in the emergency room?
Oh, jeez. We could have kept the stitches.
I will submit my photos to our historian friend here for preservation, because after we take over the Sasquatch Hunters as the #1 podcast in the
Yes.
Pacific Northwest, then those pictures will actually be meaningful in the historic nature of Clark County, for sure. Book it.
Book it.
Done.
What's today's date?
Still thirsty, Ben.
So, every episode, my lovely wife Angela picks out a beer that we must taste and try to guess what it is. Now, it's usually impossible, but it's a fun game,
Yeah.
and I'm glad you're here to partake. So, what you're going to do is you're going to just, I know she picked out yep, just like that, and pour a little bit. We will hand you glasses.
Aim it that direction.
No.
For audio podcast, for everybody listening, I was telling to aim it towards Kaler's direction.
So I think this will keep it on it, right?
Yeah, it totally will.
You get like the.
And for
The man scream.
and for the historical record, it's not a corkscrew cork.
No.
It is more like a champagne
Do I have
cork.
to pop this thing off?
Yeah.
I mean,
twist?
Angie.
Well, I would put your hand over. No.
No.
Put your hand over it. Like that. There.
Bam! Kaler, that is how it's done.
That is awesome.
That was serious.
Angie brings to a museum a champagne-style cork bottle. Jeez, she doesn't know us very well.
Look at that. Oh. That is pretty.
He popped the cork perfectly.
He did.
Kaler, did you
Bradley,
take notes?
Well done, brother. That was fantastic. Are you teaching? Are you having classes? We got your first
I know
student.
somebody. Yeah, a student right across from me. He's stewing. He's
I
thinking.
know.
My hand still hurts. I have like long-term nerve damage.
Okay, that's enough. There you go.
I'm a little worried.
Have you smelled it?
No,
Oh, jeez. Yep. She's back.
I was gonna say it looks like it's either a Belgian double or a barley wine.
It's a barley wine.
That's my guess. Just looking, I haven't
Yeah.
even smelled it yet.
Oh,
you guys
smell
know
it.
my
It's a
take.
barley
You
wine.
know my take on barley wine.
I know.
All right,
Oh God, yeah.
gentlemen.
All right, prost
Prost.
again. Dink. Oh, it's a barley wine. Yep.
Smoky.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It doesn't have that like hop bitterness
No.
that you usually get from a barley wine. It's not. Again, it's not very abrasive. It's pretty smooth.
A little boozy on the smell, but
Yeah, but not in the. It's kind of weird. I wasn't expecting that at all.
Is it plum? I'm thinking about that bottle upstairs.
It does.
Is it plummy?
It has a little.
Plummy?
It has a little like.
Is that a word?
That's the technical term.
It has a little like. Yeah.
It's a good thing we brought the technician with
Yeah,
us, right?
exactly.
What do you think, Bradley?
Yeah, it has like kind of like a fruity, spicy
Yeah,
taste to it,
peppery
like,
almost.
Yeah.
Whoa, yeah.
What is that? It is definitely.
Like some barrel age or something, maybe?
Man, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But see,
I'm
I'm
thinking
not-
of barrel aged.
I can taste a little smoky and a little...
I get the smoky, but I don't get anything. I don't get any booze. I don't get any like whiskey
No,
or anything.
no.
But maybe just like oak barrel aged.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But I agree. I do think it's a barley wine. But there is some fruit, and I can't quite place it.
All right, Bradley.
Plum's a good guess, bro.
I'm thinking plum. And only because I saw that bottle upstairs in the museum, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if that's plum.
All right. The big
Bradley.
reveal.
All right.
Ooh, what is that?
This says, what is this? 3 philosophers. It is a blend of quadruple ale and Belgium Creek ale with cherries.
We were
Cherry.
way
Cherries,
off.
that's
It's
cherries.
cherry, though. Yep, that's the fruit from Omagong out of New York. Yeah,
She's back.
the quadruple. I said a double. I was 2 off.